It was a discovery that stunned the world. An entire ancient city, hidden for centuries, suddenly revealed itself to the modern world. But that was just the beginning. As archaeologists ventured deeper into the heart of the city, and after years of severe drought, the mighty Euphrates River had completely dried up, revealing a long-lost artifact that had been hidden for millennia. How did it go unnoticed for so long? What secrets lay hidden within its walls? The answers to these questions could rewrite the history books and unlock new insights into one of the most fascinating figures of ancient history. The astounding discovery of the ancient Mesopotamian city of Gilgamesh, which was unearthed after the Euphrates River fully dried up, has astonished the entire globe in recent years. This finding led to the city's location. This incredible find at an archaeological site has not only cast fresh light on one of the most intriguing and enigmatic people in the annals of human history, but has also prompted tremendous interest and debate among academics, historians, and members of the general public alike. People all throughout the world have been mesmerized for millennia by the tale of Gilgamesh, the favored ruler of Uruk. His deeds and adventures have been recounted in ancient manuscripts and epic poetry, and his legacy has survived through the ages thanks to these works. However, the precise location of his grave was unknown for hundreds of years, and many people were under the impression that it had been obliterated by the passing of time. All of that changed when the Euphrates River, which had continuously flowed through the region for a long time, unexpectedly stopped flowing through the area because of shifting weather patterns and other environmental variables. After the flood levels had subsided, a group of archaeologists exploring the riverbank came across the ruins of a large edifice that had been buried there. In the course of further excavation, it was discovered that the site in question was really the long-lost tomb of Gilgamesh himself. Let's take a look back at the history of Gilgamesh. According to legend, Gilgamesh's parents were the goddess Ninsun, also known as Ninsumun, the Holy Mother and Great Queen, and the priest king Lugalbanda, who is portrayed in two Sumerian poems concerning his magical talents that predate Gilgamesh. The Sumerian king list puts Gilgamesh's reign at 126 years. Thus, he must have been a demigod if he lived so long and had godlike strength. In the 26th century BCE, Gilgamesh is generally agreed upon to have been the fifth king of Uruk. He is said to have had such an impact that legends about his divine nature developed in response to his actions, eventually coalescing into the stories that form the basis of the Epic of Gilgamesh. Some of the later kings of Mesopotamia would even claim descent from him. To boost his reputation among his subjects, Shulgi of Ur, often regarded as the greatest monarch of the Ur III period in Mesopotamia, reportedly claimed Lugalbanda and Ninsun as his parents and Gilgamesh as his brother. According to researcher Stephen Mitchell, his name Bilgames, Gilgames, and Gilgamos could indicate the kinsman is a hero or the old man is a young man. The ancient Sumerian poetry, The Descent of Inanna, popularly introduces him to modern audiences as a god who died and was reborn, the fabled ruler of Uruk and the consort of Inanna Ishtar. Gilgamesh rejects Inanna Ishtar, but he also suffers over the loss of his companion Dumuzi, who he seduced and afterward punished by banishing him to the underworld for 6 months out of every year. The process of developing the text. The Akkadian translation of the poem was uncovered in 1849 by archaeologist Austin Henry Layard among the remains of Ashurbanipal's library in Nineveh. In the middle of the 19th century, European institutions and governments began funding journeys to Mesopotamia in search of tangible evidence to confirm events reported in the Bible. Layard's voyage was one such expedition. Instead, they discovered that the Bible drew heavily on older Sumerian mythology, despite the belief that it was the oldest book in the world and a collection of wholly original stories. The Epic of Gilgamesh did the same thing, since it was inspired by stories that were probably told orally for hundreds to thousands of years before being committed to writing. Before the discovery of the works of the poet-priestess Enheduanna, daughter of Sargon of Akkad, it was believed that the Babylonian writer Shin-Leqi-Unini was the world's first author recognized by name. As Gilgamesh had been a popular hero for decades before the epic was written, Shin-Leqi-Unini likely had access to a large variety of Sumerian sources from which to draw inspiration. For instance, Gilgamesh plays the role of a devoted brother to Inanna in the Sumerian story of Inanna and the Hulupi tree about 2900 BCE. The Sumerian goddess of love and battle, Inanna, plants a tree in her garden with the intention of carving furniture out of its branches. However, the tree is soon inhabited by a serpent at its base, a female demon, Lilutu, and an Anzu bird in its canopy. Inanna has tried everything to get rid of the insects, but nothing has worked. She finally decides to ask her brother, the sun deity Utu Shamash, for assistance. Utu refuses, so she calls Gilgamesh, who arrives armed to the teeth and dispatches the snake. After the demon and the Anzu bird escape, Gilgamesh cuts off some branches for himself and then gives the trunk to Inanna to use as a foundation for a bed and a chair. It is believed that this is the first appearance of Gilgamesh in heroic poetry, and the fact that he saves a strong goddess from danger demonstrates the esteem in which he was held even at this early date. These stories portray him as a heroic figure, and the real-life king was ultimately elevated to the position of a god. He was frequently portrayed as the sibling of Inanna, one of Mesopotamia's most beloved deities. Clay tablets contain prayers to Gilgamesh, who is portrayed as an underworld judge on par with the legendary Greek figures Rhadamanthus, Minos, and Aeacus. After returning from Ereshkigal's dark realm where he went to collect his friend's stolen goods, Enkidu gives Gilgamesh a personal account of the afterlife in the poem Gilgamesh, Enkidu and the Netherworld, which builds on earlier stories such as Inanna and the Hulupu tree. Gilgamesh may be the only living person to have seen what is beyond death, or he may be one of only two, together with the divine Dumuzi, if Enkidu is thought to have survived his trip to the underworld and delivered this vision. The canonical account of the story is based on the cuneiform tablets unearthed by LAYARD in 1849 and translated and published by George Smith in 1876. These 11 tablets form the basis for any modern translation, while a 12th is sometimes added to elaborate on the connections between Gilgamesh, Enkidu, and the underworld. Enkidu dies in Tablet 7 of the traditional version, so his appearance in Tablet 12 as a servant, and not Gilgamesh's companion, is confusing and so frequently deleted. The inclusion of Tablet 12 is often explained away by suggesting that Enkidu is a ghost who has returned from the underworld to inform Gilgamesh what he has seen. However, the poem's text contradicts this reading, as Gilgamesh pleads twice to the gods to have Enkidu released from the underworld on the grounds that he has not died but is being wrongfully kept there. The conventional form of the epic is dated to the period of Shin-Leki Unini, and most current translators make the wise decision to leave Gilgamesh, Enkidu, and the Netherworld as separate works. Consequences and ongoing debate. Gilgamesh, who fought against death in his search for significance, is often considered the first epic hero in global literature. Everyone can identify with Gilgamesh's sorrow and the questions his friend's death raises, because we've all had to deal with loss and seek purpose in the face of death. Despite Gilgamesh's failure to achieve immortality, his story and his actions continue to be remembered and admired to this day. Since the stories that became the Epic of Gilgamesh were spoken orally for centuries before they were committed to writing, scholars have long debated whether the story as we know it today is more influenced by early Sumerian or later Babylonian culture. As previously mentioned, the Babylonian Shin-Leki Unini, written in Akkadian and based on the original Sumerian source material, produced the best preserved version of the story. Scholar Samuel Noah Kramer has something to say on the subject. Several of the stories in the Epic of Gilgamesh can be traced back to Gilgamesh-related Sumerian predecessors. Even in the events that have no direct Sumerian analogues, many of the elements can be traced back to ancient Sumerian literature. However, the Babylonian poets never plagiarized the Sumerian works word for word. They adapted its meaning and shape so drastically to reflect their own culture and history that little of the original Sumerian text is discernible today. The overall plot structure of the epic, with its strong and fatal episodic drama of the restless, adventurous hero and his inevitable letdown, is unquestionably a growth and achievement of Babylonia rather than Sumeria. However, in terms of the piece's significance, it makes little difference whether culture had a greater hand in its development, as is the case with any great piece of literature. In terms of its portrayal of the human condition, the Epic of Gilgamesh does not belong to any one civilization or time period any more than the Mahabharata, the Iliad, the Odyssey, the Shahnameh, or the Aeneid. Of course, a literary work reflects the culture that created it, but the greatest works, like Gilgamesh, are universal in their appeal. The timeless appeal of Gilgamesh has endured ever since the text was originally translated into English in the 1870s. For instance, in April 2003, a group of German archaeologists asserted that they had located his tomb. Garden enclosures, particular buildings, and structures described in the Epic of Gilgamesh, including Gilgamesh's tomb, have been uncovered through modern technological digs in and around the old riverbed of the Euphrates. After his death, the water of the Euphrates supposedly divided and he was buried at its bottom. The tale of how Gilgamesh was unable to fulfill his wish of living forever is, in and of itself, the vehicle through which he achieves immortality. The epic itself has achieved immortality and has been used as a template for other stories of a similar nature that have been produced in the years thereafter. However, as Mitchell explains, it entails a great deal more than that. The story of Gilgamesh gives readers a reason to have hope by demonstrating that the decisions they make in life have an effect not just on their own lives, but also on the lives of those around them. These people may be friends, family members, acquaintances, or even strangers who continue to be moved by the immortal tale of the individual's refusal to accept a life without meaning long after the individual has passed away. This story is what gives life purpose. Gilgamesh is defined by his fight against what appears to be meaninglessness, just as every other person who has ever lived is defined by the same thing, and his quest continues to inspire people who recognize how fundamentally human the fight against meaninglessness is and always will be. That's all for the video today. We will be right back with more such videos. Don't forget to give this one a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.